Watch out, Russell Wilson. Chase Young is going to play this week in Denver, but Jerry Jeudy is also going to play against the Washington Commanders. And we have Cakes from the Junkies here on your 15 September Daily Commanders Update. Let's go. Greetings and salutations. Welcome to your 15 September Daily Commanders Update. I'm Nathan Perry. That's the Stoner. We are from Ref the District on the Believe Network. Make sure you take the time to sub up wherever you're watching us or listening to us, because we are everywhere. Stoner, great news today, right off the bat, is that Chase is back. We mentioned yesterday he was a full participant. Today, not even on the injury report. Commanders saying he is cleared and going to be active for week 2 against Denver. Been standing again with Rivera on whether or not Chase Young plays with a snap count. Says they'll be smart and diligent. Kind of interesting on the snap count front, Stoner, because this was something last year he had to deal with, and he responded better than the team expected. So he ended up playing past that snap count. What do you expect from having Chase Young back in the field here week 2?
Well, first of all, it's fantastic that he is finally back on the field. He only missed the one game. That's why they didn't put him on the PUP. So it's great that he's there. You add him to a defense that was already dominant in week 1 and Montez Sweat coming off the edge. Now, if Denver had any plans to, maybe slide the line towards Montez to try and protect that side, now you got to worry about Chase on the other side. He says he's healthy. He seems to be healthy. And having him on a possible snap count, we'll just have to see kind of how it plays out, just like last year. Because like you said, he was supposed to be on that snap count last year, and he just went right through it because he was feeling so good. I kind of think it's going to be the same thing this week.
And I don't necessarily think that he needs a lot of snaps to be disruptive. We kind of saw that in the preseason game. He was only in at 4 snaps, and he got after Deshaun Watson within those 4 snaps. And I think if that he was to stay healthy, he would be very disruptive. Now, I've been on your case a little bit because you've been on Chase's, case this entire time.
Correct.
And you've outwardly questioned his desire to play. And he actually had a kind of a response to that as whether or not he's prepared.
I want to play every game. Everybody wants to play every game. But it's all good. My time will come. So it's time. So now it's time to go play. So definitely, just blessed to be out there and doing everything I need to do to prepare.
So Chase saying that he's done everything that he needs to prepare. Even Coach Rivera has talked about him doing everything that he's been asked to do. And you heard it in the beginning, like he wants to be out there. A large part of this, and I think too many people, not necessarily you, but too many people were putting this on Chase when the team and the coaches, they kept telling us, and John Keim reporting and everything, like a lot of this was out of his control, Stoner, right? Like he's not the one who gets to decide if he sits or if he plays. That was the coach's aspect.
I'm not saying this is the case, but what you have just described is a little term called plausible deniability, right? So if you can just push this blame off of somebody else and say, well, it's not my decision. I had nothing to do with it. I'm not trying to speak ill will. I'm glad he's back. That's all I've ever wanted in all of the rants that I have about Chase is I just want him to be out there and I want him to perform, which other than his rookie season, he hasn't done that. So that's all. I'm hoping he hears it from me and from this show, and it motivates him to be better, and he uses it as fuel. So look, he needs to be out there. He needs to perform. He needs to make his money, and he needs to do it so that the Commanders have a better chance to win, because that's the bottom line. Say what you want about Chase and wanting him to be great and all this other stuff. The whole reason we all want this and we push it and we get mad and we get frustrated is because we want him to help this team win.
Yeah, we need to keep walking down that alphabet to the letter W, as Coach Bieniemy was talking about here. Yeah. This has not been easy for Chase Young either. I mentioned a lot of this has been out of his control, and he kind of talks about it here on how it's been difficult.
Things happen outside of your control. just play football. You can't really control, if you get hurt, or things like that. So, I wasn't really tripping too bad. I just knew my time was going to come again. So, I just stayed focused and stayed consistent on what I had to do. And now we're here.
Yeah. So we all, as fans of this team, certainly want him to be that Chase Young
100%.
from his rookie year. And I do think that he's got the opportunity to be disruptive against this Denver Broncos line, who, outside of a very good guard, struggled a little bit in week one. And of course, you got Max Crosby of the Raiders, who was causing them problems. Montez Sweat's pretty good. Coach Rivera, though, came out and talked a little bit about Montez Sweat and Chase Young are not the ones you really have to worry about. It's that interior defensive lineman that Washington has. Yeah. What did you feel about Ron Rivera's comments on that regard and having Chase back?
Yeah, I like that he's letting everybody know that the defensive ends, the edge guys, they get all the accolades and they get all the attention and everything, but this team is built from the inside out, especially on that defensive line. So yeah, Denver's going to have to come up with a plan for Daron Payne and John Allen. And let's not forget about old Ridgeway in there, who when he's in there, he performs. So yeah, I like that. I also like it almost as kind of a little hidden motivation for Chase and still Montez to be saying, they get all the glory and everything, but watch the inside guys. And then maybe Montez is like, wait a minute, after everything I did, you're still doing that? Well, let me go show you what I still got.
Yeah, I will stand by my opinion on Montez being robbed of the NFC Defensive Player of the Week. I think that he had an outstanding week. I look forward to a big week coming from the defensive line, and we actually get to talk to the Let's Ride guys. So you're going to want to check out that conversation we're going to have on our Saturday game preview, because they have some high things to say about that line as well. Getting back to the news side of the house here, Stoner. Unfortunately, Quan Martin, the second round rookie, is going to be out dealing with a concussion. Curtis Samuel is going to play, but is limited with a hip injury. What do you think about Curtis Samuel missing time? Because we know Quan Martin is just kind of an additional piece right now for the team. He's not an integral piece.
Yep, exactly. And Curtis Samuel, though, he was the leading receiver this past week. Let's not forget that he had 5 for 54. I know it's not a huge number, but he did have the most catches and the most yards from the receiver position. So keep an eye on that to see how well he's going to play, or how physically able he is to be playing on Sunday, because that could be a big deal. Who's the backup in the slot? I know Jahan can play the slot, and he has played the slot, so they would have to move that. But then that just keeps the line moving, and that's De'Ami Brown time. Maybe he sees a couple of targets this week, which he had 0 targets last week.
Yeah, I think that if you're talking strictly slot, De'Ami's probably going to be more of an outside guy. Maybe it's the likes of Jamison Crowder, somebody who they bring up and allowed to do punt returns and has that experience at the slot. So, but not so many experience in this Bieniemy offense. So we'll be interested to see how that plays out for the team if Curtis Samuel's not or limited during the game. If he's on a snap count. Washington's going to have some tough sledding as far as the offense is concerned against the Denver defense, which is what they're known for. But there is another player that is the eyes are all on as far as Denver's concerned, and that is on the offense. Jerry Jeudy is going to be playing. He was nursing a hamstring injury, originally thought going to be out 4 to 6 weeks.
I know.
Is coming back here this Sunday against the Washington Commanders. How much of an impact do you expect Jerry Jeudy to have for Denver?
Nathan, Jerry Judy's a problem for a defense. He's a problem for any defense. I don't care who you have back there. He's a difference maker. He's a speed demon. He's a fantastic route runner. So they're going to have to really game plan for Jerry Jeudy if indeed he's playing. This could be gamesmanship because, like you said, it was supposed to be 4 to 6 weeks, and that was only like 2, maybe 3 weeks ago. So I don't. They're going to have to game plan for Jerry Jeudy, and they're going to have to know where he is every single play. That could be the reason that this offense struggled last week, the Denver offense, and that they had so few yards per attempt from the passing game and only finished with 170 something yards passing. He's a difference maker. So that's worrisome to me.
He might be limited with that hamstring injury. So when you're talking to him being explosive, even if he does play, what kind of push off is he going to see and get? So it'll be interesting to see how he performs. Which of our cornerbacks do you want to see? We don't have a Pat Surtain like Denver does, which can just lock down a whole side of the field.
Yeah.
Who do you like against Jerry Jeudy if he's full throttle here against the Commanders? Which of our cornerbacks are you taking with him?
Well, I think I don't think it matters. I think what they need to do is that's the guy. That's the one guy that they need to worry about. So they need to slide their coverage to wherever Jerry Jeudy is and have two guys on him at all the time. Have a corner. If he lines up in the slot, fine. Benjamin St. Juste is there with some safety help. And if he lines up outside, fine. If it's on Fuller's side, if it's on Forbes' side, it doesn't matter. But you're going to have to slide that safety for help and make Russell Wilson beat you with other guys that are not as talented. And then depend on the rest of your defenders to lock that down. Put two guys on Jerry Jeudy at all time. I know that doesn't always work, right? Because he's great receiver for a reason. It's not like people say, oh, well, we're only going to cover him with one, and then he beats you all over the field. Teams do that. They slide defenses to get two guys on him, and he still beats them. So just focus on that. Doesn't matter specifically who it is, but they're going to need to focus their coverage on him specifically.
Well, that is the Stoner game plan coming in here to help us from the Washington side of things, kind of preview this game. It is Cakes from the Junkies, 106.7 The Fan, joining us here on Ref the District. Cakes, thanks for joining us here on Ref the District as we bring the Daily Commanders update here and all the news. The big one today, Chase Young is going to play this week against Denver. Originally, I thought that we weren't going to see him till week 3. How big is Chase Young being back on the field for the Commanders?
I mean, I think he could potentially provide a huge lift to this defense. I mean, we know what Chase Young is. He's a super like inspirational rah-rah guy, and you know that it's killing him not to be out there and playing with his teammates and not to be a focal point of this defense. And it's great news for the Commanders that you can add him to the mix of Sweat and Payne and Allen. And we saw how disruptive that defense was in week 1 against the Arizona Cardinals. Now you put another chess piece out there, as talented as Chase Young is. Now, can he live up to the talent? Can he be a guy that can be healthy enough and productive enough that he'll give you double-digit sacks, 12, 13 sacks, and get to that point where he's going to make that 20+ million per year? That's yet to be seen. But I think it definitely provides a lift for this defense. His teammates seem to love him. They want to have him out on the field rather than in a t-shirt on the sideline standing next to Ron Rivera. So yeah, I think it can only be a positive to have him out on the field. Now, is he going to play a full complement of snaps? You would guess not. Ron was a little bit elusive about how much he'll be used and how much he'll be utilized, but I think it's only great news to have Chase Young out on the field in week 2 in Denver. It's great to have him back a week earlier than expected.
And Cakes, have you noticed, just from being in this whole environment with the team and with the beat reporters and all of that, have you just noticed a difference in attitude, for lack of a better word, of being about this team, of being about with the Commanders, with the new owner and everything that's going on? Have you noticed it from callers and from guests and from beat reporters and such?
You mean like the general outlook on the team going forward?
Just on the organization.
Night and day. You can just tell that the black cloud of ownership that followed Dan Snyder around for 20+ years, that's been lifted. And there's a new sense of optimism, with the owners, the players, fans, especially. And look, I mean, how often is FedEx going to be sold out for an opener against the Arizona Cardinals? If that ownership, how many people do you think would have been at FedEx this past weekend if Dan Snyder was still there and there wasn't this buzz about the new ownership taking over, a new sense of optimism surrounding the team. Like the only way FedEx has been filled over the last 5, 7, or 8 years is if the Cowboys are in town or
they're hosting a music concert.
Yeah, like
they cover up half the things with FedEx sheets.
If there were close to 50,000 people in the stands at FedEx Field in the past few years, it's because the Cowboys are in town, the Eagles, Giants fill in a team with a big traveling fan base. I mean, this past weekend, 65,000 people were at FedEx, and they were all Commanders fans. I mean, there might have been a handful of Arizona Cardinals fans, but
and the one Ravens fan, we know that the one with the Ray Lewis jersey,
that weirdo Ravens fan who we talked about on the Junks, like that dude took 5 or 6, maybe 7 shots to the head, and he looked like he wasn't feeling any pain. Man, that dude must have been out in the parking lot for hours pre-game. But yeah, there's definitely a sense of that. People want to go out to FedEx Field to watch the Commanders. And if they're able to secure a win in week 2 in Denver and come back 2-0 to host the Buffalo Bills, the ticket prices and the buzz for that game are going to be completely off the charts if that happens. I think it'll still be a great atmosphere even if they drop the game in Denver. But if somehow they find a way to get a road win in a tough environment and come back 2-0 and face the Bills here at FedEx, that place is just going to be pandemonium in week 3.
Well, they are right now undefeated in the Josh Harris era. Of course, most of that's preseason. And this game against Arizona did not quite go the way most of us were thinking it was going to go, and it wasn't a blowout victory. What does Washington have to do to secure that victory to get this hype going for week 3?
Well, I think first and foremost, we all know that it's something that works in tandem. The offensive line has to play better, and Sam Howell either has to have a better sense of when the pressure is coming on him, and or Eric Bieniemy has to move the pocket around a little bit, utilize the wheels that Sam Howell has. I mean, it's a blessing when you have a quarterback that's that mobile. So why would you just drop him back and let him have the pressure close in on him? Move the pocket, use the legs, use bootlegs, get him on the move instead of just letting that pressure get in on him. I think that's the main thing. And let's see a little more of the quick game that we heard was going to be, a big part of this offense, because you've got the pieces to utilize it with Jahan Dotson. I mean, that guy is lethal in small, short spaces. Hopefully, Terry McLaurin, we know can do damage there as well. And I was a little bit surprised too by how much Logan Thomas was used, considering the calf injury that dogged him throughout training camp. So I think if you have those pieces in place and the defense looks like it did in week 1 against the Cardinals, I think that they've got a good shot at pulling off a slight upset. I mean, they're only 3.5 point underdog in Denver this week. It's not like it's a 7 or an 8 point spread. This game's expected to be pretty close.
Yeah. Home field gets you 3 points right there. So, I mean, it is pretty much a push game here. One of those things with Denver is they've got Russell Wilson, a guy I think we all wanted last offseason, ended up going to Denver, not having a great first start there. They add Sean Payton. Jerry Jeudy's going to be here for week 2, wasn't there in week 1 and the loss to the Raiders. Does this offense for Denver kind of scare you or anything? Or is there anything in there that worries you?
Well, I think the addition of Jerry Jeudy is a big positive for Denver. He's a guy that's, like a technician, really good route runner, kind of along the Terry McLaurin lines, maybe a tad more explosive than Terry, but close, similar type of players. But the big question with him is he's coming off a hamstring injury, and we know that hammies, more than any other injury, they're really problematic for wide receivers. I mean, you could tweak that and he could be, down for part of the game or out for the next few weeks. It's just a matter of, is he 100%? Is he playing at 90%? But he is a boost to that offense. You look at the running game there, Javonte Williams, former Washington running back, Samaje Perine. That's a decent tandem, but none of those guys scare you at this point because Williams coming back from a pretty serious knee injury. He doesn't look to be 100% back. They don't look like they fully trust him yet. Judy's the guy you really have to account for. Dulcich goes on the injury list with a banged up. I think he's dealing with a hamstring too. So they're a little bit dinged up on offense too, not quite at full strength. But this is a team kind of like the Commanders that they're not going to score a ton. Like last year, they scored around 17 points per game, I believe it was. And in week 1, they scored 16 points. So the switch hasn't been quite flipped, and at least through the first week with Sean Payton there. I think it's going to take some time. And look, we all know that Russell Wilson is not the Russell Wilson of, taking the Seahawks to the Super Bowl. Denver was a little bit desperate. They wanted to get what they thought is a top-tier quarterback. Look, nobody's going to put Russell Wilson in the Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts category. He's a few steps down from that. So I think if Washington can put the pressure on him like they did on Josh Dobbs, if that defensive line comes to play, I think it's going to be a dogfight out in Denver.
Just real quick on Sam Howell, I wanted to ask your opinion. Has your opinion changed from the time they drafted him, pretty much as an afterthought in the 5th round, to today, to seeing him out there and performing and what he's done in the offseason, preseason, so on and so forth? Has your opinion changed, or are you still kind of on that spot where you're just not sold yet?
It has to an extent. I'll be honest. I'm a bit of a quarterback where you were drafted elitist. Just because numbers are, for the most part, on my side. Like, how often do quarterbacks drafted, I think even outside of like the 2nd round, how often do those guys go on to become franchise caliber signal callers that you build your team around? Like, most 5th rounders wind up with their ceiling as career backup. If you stay in the league 3, 4, or 5 years, that's a pretty good run for you. Because, I mean, there aren't that many good 5th rounders that start for a team. If you craft that guy into your backup or 3rd stringer, that's usually a win for your personnel department. 5th rounders don't generally go on to become guys who are 6, 7, 8, 10-year starters in the NFL. So for that reason, I'm a little skeptical. And look, he's got 2 starts under his belt, but you like what you see from him. He's mobile. He doesn't have premier height. He's about 6 feet tall. I like my quarterbacks to be about 6'3" or 6'4". That's the sweet spot. And we saw his pass get deflected in week 1 that led to a pick. So that makes you the question marks and red flags go up a bit. But look, he's got Eric Bieniemy, one of the better offensive minds, calling plays for him. He should be trying to put him in the best positions for his skill set. He's got a strong arm. He can move around in the pocket if that's what Bieniemy wants to do with him. I think he's got a chance to be good. And my outlook on him has definitely improved since when he was drafted. Because when he was drafted, I was like, he's a 5th rounder. He's never going to develop into anything. But maybe that's just my bias against guys that are picked outside of the 1st round, because we've seen tons of guys picked in the 1st round that bust, that don't become anything in the league. Like Marcus Mariota is on his 3rd or 4th team at this point, and he's a backup to Jalen Hurts. He's never going to play unless Jalen Hurts gets injured. Like that guy was a number 2 overall pick. He wasn't picked in the 2nd round. He was a 2nd overall pick. So if a guy like that busts, then of course a guy picked in the 5th round, or as EB likes to say, he was like the last 4th round pick because it was an extra compensatory pick. First pick of the 5th round made him a late 4th rounder is the way he justifies it. But I have a bit of quarterback snobbery where you were drafted built in, because generally the later you're picked, the lesser your chances are of becoming a top 10, top 12, top 15 quarterback in the league.
Well, you're in good company. Stoner preaches that as well. Although Stoner did a 180 in the offseason and became a howler as it is. If it's not Sam Howell, who's got to step up for Washington this weekend?
Oh, if it's not Sam Howell,
if it's
not Sam Howell, it's easy. It's the entire defensive front, because all of that money and draft capital has been poured into that defensive line, especially. And look, I mean, you've got Jonathan Allen and Payne both making big money now, both on their deals. Montez Sweat is playing for his next deal. And the way he played in week 1, he looked like if he doesn't get it from Washington, he's going to get it from somebody, because if you're a disruptor like that, like he was in week 1, and you do that consistently, you're going to be making north of $20-some million. Like that's just the going rate for a guy like Sweat. And look, we know that Chase Young wants to be in that same company, because the team didn't pick up his 5th-year option. He knows the only way to go and get and be in that elite category is to go out and have a dozen sacks or 13 sacks. If he does that, then he's going to get paid like those other guys. But yeah, if Sam Howell can't carry them, the defense, especially the defensive line, has to be the ones that carry this team. We saw, from that sequence in the third quarter against the Arizona Cardinals, where I think I'm getting this sequence right. Payne on second down sheds the block, or maybe it was first down, sheds the block, makes a good stop in the backfield. Third down, next play, Jonathan Allen makes a play. Next play, Montez strip sack, gets recovered. Like that's the way this team is built. Now, I don't particularly agree with pouring all your money into the defensive line. I like offense. I like scoring. That's why they bring in Bieniemy. Like you can't score 18 points and expect to win games in the NFL in 2023. So they've poured the money into the defense. You bring Bieniemy to upgrade the offense. Hopefully that's the cocktail that works. So if Sam Howell can't, bring them across the finish line in Denver, it's going to have to be that defensive line that does it.
All right, last question from me, Cakes. Is it going to work? Is that offensive creativity with Bieniemy and all, is that going to work this week against Denver? What's the score going to be?
I certainly hope it works. Commanders fans are not going to like what I've done. I did it on the Junk Show because I'm generally a mush. So they want me to be picking against the Commanders.
Right.
But I'm not buying into Denver yet. I'm not afraid of Russell Wilson. He doesn't run anymore like he used to. That guy used to be a threat to pick up maybe 40 or 50 yards rushing on the ground. I think that's pretty much been neutralized out of his game. And I just think the defensive line is going to make for a long day for Russ Wilson and that Denver offense. I like the over because this is one of the lowest, I think is the lowest total on the board at 39. I like the Commanders to win 24-17.
Ooh, that's a high scoring game for these two teams. That'd be something to see.
I don't know if there's a defensive score thrown in there or not. But look, Sam Howell, all he does is he throws a touchdown and rushes for a touchdown. That's what he's done so far. So maybe he throws for 2, runs for 1. Maybe he throws for 2, defense scores, something along those lines. I just think this is a game that's very winnable for the Commanders. I don't buy into the old mystique of Mile High Stadium. I think that this team can go in and I think they can pull a slight upset on the road. I like the Commanders to win and to come back to FedEx 2-0.
And for context, what did you have last week for Arizona, Washington?
Now I had the Commanders winning, but I thought it would be a bloodbath for the Commanders. I thought it would be an offensive explosion. I thought it'd be a domination. I had the Commanders winning 31-10. I didn't expect them to be in a dogfight, just a knockdown, drag out affair with the worst team in the league. But hey, you've got your quarterback making his second ever start. There's going to be some growing pains with that. And I think Commanders fans, they're at peace with that. Like it's not always going to be pretty with Sam Howell, but hopefully you see some incremental growths, some growth week after week. He adds to his resume, gets a little bit better at maybe, some of the deficiencies. And look, Ron said as much that when this guy faces adversity, he learns from it and he hopefully goes out and conquers it in the next game or two. So I think you're going to see a Sam Howell that isn't going to turn the ball over like he did in the first game. Hopefully he cleans some of that up and the offensive line is a little more in sync. And I like the Commanders by 7.
Well, let's hope they do flip the script there. Maybe we just had our weeks off. It was supposed to be a close game this week and a blowout last week. Maybe it's a close week in week 1 and a blowout here in week 2 for the Commanders. We'll see on Sunday as they take on the Denver Broncos at Mile High. Cakes, thanks for joining us here on Ref the District. Of course, this is Cakes from the Junkies on 106.7 The Fan. And I'm Nathan. That's the Stoner. We're Ref the District on the Believe Network. And until next time,
go Terps.
Be a fan.